Imagine for a second that there is a microscopic invisible barrier inside your body.
Hmm.
It's incredibly thin-like, so thin you can't even see it with the naked eye, yet it dictates practically everything about your daily life.
It really does.
I mean, it influences your digestion, obviously, but it also holds sway over your immune system, your mood, your brain function, and just your overall health.
Right, it's foundational to how you function.
And over the last decade, you've probably seen a massive social media phenomenon surrounding something called leaky gut syndrome.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
Right. There are like thousands of videos and articles claiming that a leaky gut is the hidden culprit behind everything from fatigue and depression to arthritis, obesity, and, even Alzheimer's.
Yeah, the claims are pretty wild.
But we have a mission today for this deep dive. We are going to take the internet fiction of the leaky gut and compare it against the actual clinical research. We want to figure out what is really going on inside your body and discover what actually works for your gut health. Okay, let's unpack this.
It's a vital topic to unpack because, well, the internet has taken a genuine, heavily researched scientific concept, what researchers actually call increased intestinal permeability, and stretched it far beyond what the available evidence supports.
I mean, they take a highly nuanced biological process and flatten it, right?
Exactly. They flatten it into a trendy buzzword that gets blamed for almost every chronic illness on the planet.
Right, but before we can even talk about how to fix a leak, we need to understand the anatomy of what is actually leaking.
Yeah, that's step one.
Because when people hear leaky gut, the imagery is, well, it's pretty visceral. They instantly imagine a damaged water pipe under a kitchen sink.
Just literal holes.
Yeah, just literal gaping holes in their intestines, spilling food particles out into the blood. But the research points out that this is a fundamental misunderstanding of, how our biology works.
It's a complete misunderstanding. I mean, the idea of a cracked, leaking pipe implies that the system is supposed to be perfectly sealed.
Which it isn't, right?
No, your intestines are never completely sealed. If they were, you would starve to death.
Oh, wow.
Think about the sheer volume of material your gut handles. Every single day, around 8 to 9 liters of fluid, along with nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and millions of molecules, pass through your digestive system.
That is a massive amount of traffic.
It really is. The intestine has a monumental task. It has to selectively absorb the vital nutrients your body needs to survive, while simultaneously blocking harmful bacteria, toxins, and unwanted substances from entering your bloodstream.
So it's not a brick wall or a solid pipe. I was trying to picture this while looking at the notes, and it sounds a lot more like a highly intelligent airport security checkpoint.
That's a really good way to look at it.
It's like you've got the trusted passengers, the nutrients and vitamins, and they get waved right through to the boarding gate. But the dangerous items, the bad bacteria, get stopped by security and tossed out.
That analogy gets us much closer, but let's take it a step further. Instead of a line of static metal detectors, imagine billions of dynamic turnstiles that can actively change shape.
Dynamic turnstiles?
Yeah, and the security agents operating these turnstiles are microscopic structures called tight junctions.
Okay, tight junctions.
Right. These are tiny, interlaced protein complexes that physically lace neighboring intestinal cells together, almost like a corset.
And these proteins are actively opening and closing, like on purpose.
Exactly. They carefully regulate what passes between the cells. And that is the crucial biological mechanism.
Okay.
These tight junctions naturally loosen and tighten slightly all the time, depending on what is passing through the digestive tract. That is normal, healthy epithelial function.
Which means a healthy gut is actually supposed to be a little bit leaky or, at least permeable.
Yes. What's fascinating here is how the term leaky gut weaponizes completely normal, healthy permeability and makes it sound like a terrifying disease state.
Right, it turns a feature into a bug.
Exactly. In reality, healthy intestines are selectively permeable. Problems only arise when this regulation process breaks down, the turnstiles get stuck open, and the barrier becomes more permeable than it is biologically designed to be.
And that's the clinical side of it.
Right. That is why scientists use the precise term increased intestinal permeability. But even when that barrier gets compromised, we have to remember a core principle of scientific research association doesn't equal causation.
Meaning, just because two things happen at the same time, we can't assume one triggered the other.
Right.
Like if someone has a compromised gut barrier and they also have chronic fatigue, the compromised barrier isn't necessarily the villain.
Precisely. It's the classic firefighter analogy.
Oh, I like this one.
Just because firefighters are always present at a burning building, it doesn't mean the firefighters started the blaze. In the same way, increased intestinal permeability is heavily associated with inflammation and various autoimmune diseases.
So it's present at the scene of the crime.
Exactly, it's at the scene. But whether the increased permeability is the original trigger that caused the disease, a consequence of the disease itself, or just one piece of a much larger systemic puzzle well that remains heavily debated in the clinical literature.
Got it. Now, if this barrier is so heavily reliant on these microscopic tight junctions to act as turnstiles, it begs the question of who is actually powering the security checkpoint, because reading through these sources, it becomes clear that we aren't just talking about our own human cells here.
Not at all. Your digestive tract is a massive, complex ecosystem.
Right.
To put it in perspective, it houses roughly 70% of your body's entire immune system.
70%, that's incredible.
It is. And right alongside those immune cells is the gut microbiome. Trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi that mostly live peacefully within us.
It's basically a bustling city in there.
A huge one. To give you an idea of the physical scale, this collection of microbes collectively weighs about as much as the human brain.
Wait, what?
Yeah, and they carry millions of unique genes.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I was looking at the actual mechanism of how we digest food, and it turns out we aren't even capable of breaking down certain things we eat.
Right, we need help.
Wait, so when we eat fiber, we aren't just feeding ourselves, we are literally feeding this hidden parallel organ, and then it pays us back by keeping our security checkpoints running.
That is the exact biological trade-off occurring in your colon right now. Human beings actually lack the enzymes required to break down dietary fiber.
We just can't do it.
No, we can't. So when you eat fiber-rich foods, it passes through your stomach and small intestine mostly intact. It only breaks down when it reaches the large intestine, where your beneficial gut microbes literally ferment it.
Wow.
They eat the fiber. And the byproduct of that microbial fermentation is a class of crucial compounds called short-chain fatty acids.
And one of those is butyrate, right?
Yes. Butyrate is the star player here.
Yeah.
Butyrate acts as the primary source of fuel for your colonocytes, the actual cells that line your colon.
Okay, I see.
So by feeding the bacteria fiber, they metabolize it and produce the exact chemical nutrient required to nourish your intestinal cells.
Which in turn gives those cells the energy to keep those tight junction proteins structurally sound.
Exactly.
It's an incredible, perfectly balanced symbiotic loop. But obviously in the modern world, things get thrown into chaos, which is why everyone is suddenly obsessed with gut health.
Oh yeah, the modern environment is tough on the gut.
So let's look at what actually breaches that security. And to contrast popular internet villains with scientific reality, I want to start with gluten.
Ah, gluten. Yes.
You go on social media and you'd think gluten was like a weapon of mass destruction that everyone on Earth needs to avoid to save their gut lining.
Right. But the blanket, internet-wide advice to avoid gluten is simply not supported by the broader scientific evidence.
Really?
No. Now, to understand why, we have to look at the mechanism. When you consume gluten, it triggers the release of a protein in the gut called zonulin.
Okay, zonulin.
And zonulin's job is to temporarily loosen those tight junctions we talked about.
But hold on. If it triggers the zonulin protein in everyone and zonulin pries the tight junctions apart, isn't gluten technically causing a leak in all of us?
It causes a transient opening, yes.
Yeah.
But in the vast majority of healthy people, the junctions close right back up.
Oh, I see.
It's a temporary, harmless fluctuation. However, there are very specific, vital exceptions. In people with celiac disease, which is a serious autoimmune condition, that zonulin response is wildly exaggerated.
So it just stays open.
Worse, their immune system attacks the open junctions, physically destroying the lining of their small intestine. For them, strict avoidance of gluten is absolutely essential.
That makes total sense.
The same goes for those with a diagnosed wheat allergy, or a condition called non-celiac gluten sensitivity. But if you don't have those specific biological conditions, the transient opening caused by gluten doesn't chronically damage your barrier.
So blanket banning gluten for everyone is like banning all cars because one specific model has a faulty brake, while completely ignoring the fact that we aren't giving the good cars enough fuel-like fiber to actually run?
That is a very apt way to look at it, actually. The hyperfixation on villainizing single ingredients completely distracts from systemic issues.
Right.
For example, let's look at antibiotics. They are undeniable medical marvels that have saved millions of lives by treating deadly bacterial infections. But they are indiscriminate weapons.
Right. The sources note they basically drop a bomb on the whole microbiome, wiping out the good with the bad.
Exactly.
And I imagine if you wipe out the good bacteria, you're wiping out the butyrate production we just talked about.
Yes, you are halting that entire fermentation process.
Oh, yeah.
In most people, the microbiome gradually recovers its diversity after a course of antibiotics.
Okay, that's good.
But repeated or unnecessary use, especially in childhood, can lead to long-lasting changes in that ecosystem. That is why they must be used highly responsibly, and never for viral illnesses like the common cold, where they have absolutely zero biological effect anyway.
Now, I was reading through the notes on ultra-processed foods, which, they get a lot of heat. But instead of just saying they're bad, I want to look at the mechanism.
Always look at the mechanism.
I saw some fascinating research regarding emulsifiers. Those ingredients used to keep ultra-processed foods shelf-stable so the oils and waters don't separate. It looks like they essentially act like dish soap in the gut, literally washing away the protective mucus layer that sits on top of our intestinal cells.
You're hitting on a crucial area of emerging research there. That mucosal layer is the first line of defense before things even reach the tight junctions.
Like a physical shield.
Right. And when emulsifiers degrade that mucus, bacteria can come into direct contact with the intestinal cells, which triggers an inflammatory response.
Ouch.
But beyond the additives, the other real danger with ultra-processed foods is simply what they lack. They are virtually devoid of fiber.
Right, the fuel.
So you aren't just potentially degrading the mucus, you are systematically starving the beneficial bacteria, stopping butyrate production, and weakening the cellular barrier from the inside out.
What about artificial sweeteners? I was looking at the clinical data on things like sucralose and saccharin, and it seems they don't just pass through us harmlessly.
They don't. Because many artificial sweeteners aren't absorbed in the small intestine, they make their way down to the colon.
Where the bacteria are.
Exactly. Once there, your gut bacteria attempt to interact with them. While the science is still evolving, hypothesized mechanisms suggest that certain sweeteners might alter the pH of the gut environment.
Interesting.
Or they might provide a competitive advantage to hostile bacteria over beneficial ones. The resulting microbial shift can drive inflammation. However, it's highly nuanced. Different sweeteners have completely different chemical structures, and responses vary drastically from person to person.
If the gut barrier is this heavily dependent on the bacteria we feed it, why do people with seemingly perfect diets still develop severe gut issues? It seems like food is only half the equation here.
It is only half the equation. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look outside the digestive tract and talk about the gut-brain axis. The gut-brain axis.
Okay. The gut and the brain are physically tethered together by the vagus nerve, which acts like a biological superhighway. They are in constant two-way communication.
So when we experience psychological stress, that's translating into a physical reaction in the gut.
Very much so. When you experience chronic stress, your brain triggers the fight-or-flight response, flooding your system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline.
Right, the survival mode.
From an evolutionary standpoint, if you are running from a predator, your body doesn't want to waste energy digesting lunch.
That makes sense.
So it actively shunts blood flow away from the digestive tract and pushes it toward your muscles and heart.
Wow, so chronic stress is literally starving the gut lining of blood and oxygen.
Yes, it creates a state of mild ischemia, a restriction in blood supply. Over time, that lack of oxygen and altered motility compromises the integrity of the tight junctions.
I think everyone has felt the acute version of that, right?
Oh, definitely. Getting butterflies in your stomach before a big public speaking event, or, suddenly needing to run to the toilet right before a major exam.
That is the gut-brain axis happening in real time. Now imagine that acute nervous response stretched out over months or years because of a high-pressure job, financial strain, or chronic anxiety.
That sounds exhausting for the body.
It is. That ongoing chemical and physical signaling can absolutely degrade intestinal barrier function no matter how much broccoli you eat.
So my stressful job and my lack of sleep are physically communicating with my intestines. My thoughts are quite literally touching my stomach.
That's a profound way to phrase it, but yes.
But let's talk about the sleep aspect. I saw studies linking sleep deprivation to an immediate spike in systemic inflammation.
The mechanism there is tied to immune regulation. Since 70% of your immune system is in the gut, when sleep deprivation throws your immune function out of balance and increases inflammatory cytokines, the gut lining takes collateral damage.
So sleep is non-negotiable.
Completely. The microbial diversity also visibly shifts after just a few nights of poor sleep.
What about physical stress? If I go for a run to burn off my mental stress, is that helping or hurting my gut bacteria?
Moderate, regular exercise is fantastic for the gut. It increases microbial diversity and reduces baseline inflammation.
Oh, good.
But there is a fascinating caveat when we look at extreme endurance sports. Running an ultramarathon, for instance, can actually cause a significant temporary increase in intestinal permeability.
Wait, really? Is that the blood shunting mechanism again?
Exactly. The sheer physical stress of that extreme prolonged exertion forces the body to divert massive amounts of blood away from the gut to keep the muscles functioning.
So you get temporary leaky gut from running too far.
Yes, that temporary ischemia weakens the barrier. But again, for the average person jogging or lifting weights, the net effect is highly beneficial. Heavy alcohol consumption, on the other hand, acts as a direct chemical solvent.
Yikes.
Yeah, it damages the lipids in the cell membranes of the intestinal lining, directly increasing permeability.
Okay, so if we take a step back, modern life is basically a gauntlet for our gut barrier.
It really is a gauntlet.
Between the psychological stress, the lack of sleep, the occasional antibiotic, the emulsifiers, and the alcohol, our cellular security checkpoints are taking an absolute beating.
Definitely.
Which brings us to the billion-dollar question, how on earth do we fix it? Because if you look online, the gut healing supplement industry is absolutely booming with expensive detoxes, juice cleanses, and, specialized powders.
And the irony of that massive industry is that it completely ignores a highly encouraging biological reality. Your intestinal lining is one of the fastest renewing tissues in your entire body.
Wait, how fast are we talking?
Through a process called epithelial regeneration, the stem cells at the base of your intestinal crypts are constantly dividing. The entire lining of your gut replaces itself every 3 to 5 days.
Every 3 to 5 days.
Yes. The body actively wants to repair itself. It doesn't need to be forced. You just need to stop hindering the process.
So we don't need a $100 gut detox juice cleanse to scrub it out.
You absolutely do not. Commercial detoxes are pure marketing fiction.
Good to know.
Your body already possesses incredibly sophisticated, built-in detoxification systems. Your liver, your kidneys, your lungs, and the digestive tract itself.
Right.
You don't need a specialized juice to do their job. And in many cases, juice cleanses strip out all the beneficial fiber we just established is so critical.
Let me push back on some of the trendy supplements, though. Things like L-glutamine or bone broth.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier that cells need nutrients to repair tight junctions. Well, I read that glutamine is a key amino acid used as a building block for intestinal cells.
It is.
So if it's the literal building block of the gut lining, why wouldn't swallowing a giant scoop of it patch up the leaks? What is the biological disconnect there?
It comes down to rate-limiting factors.
Yeah.
You're right that intestinal cells utilize glutamine, and it is studied for specific severe medical conditions. But your body is incredibly efficient at extracting the glutamine it needs from a standard protein-adequate diet. Unless you're critically ill, like in an intensive care unit with severe burns or muscle wasting, your cellular bucket for glutamine is likely already full.
Oh, so it just overflows.
Exactly. Taking a massive supplement just means your liver metabolizes the excess and you excrete it. It's like pouring wet concrete onto a sidewalk that is already finished.
That's a great visual.
The same goes for collagen and bone broth. They are excellent sources of protein, but there is no robust clinical evidence that they magically target and seal a healthy person's gut barrier.
Okay, let's talk about the absolute biggest moneymaker in the gut space, probiotics. People pop these very expensive pills every morning thinking they're instantly repopulating their gut with an army of good bacteria.
Probiotics are live microorganisms, and they do have their place. They can provide targeted benefits in specific situations, such as recovering from antibiotic-associated diarrhea or managing certain subtypes of irritable bowel syndrome.
So they aren't useless.
No, but they are not a universal cure-all. A great way to conceptualize probiotics is to think about buying a pair of shoes.
Buying shoes?
Yeah, there's no single pair of shoes that is perfect for every occasion or every person. You wouldn't wear heavy hiking boots to run a marathon.
Right.
Similarly, specific probiotic strains perform very different biological functions. Throwing a random, heavily marketed, multi-strain probiotic at your gut without knowing what your specific microbiome lacks is essentially a shot in the dark.
Wow.
It might help, but it might do absolutely nothing.
So if throwing expensive bacterial strains at the wall isn't the answer, what should we actually be focusing on?
Prebiotics.
Prebiotics with an E.
Right. If probiotics are the bacteria themselves, prebiotics are the specific types of fiber those bacteria eat to survive and produce butyrate.
Okay, so feeding the ones we already have.
Yes. The clinical focus shouldn't be on taking a pill to introduce transient bacteria. It should be on feeding and multiplying the beneficial microbes you already host. Current research points to a very specific, actionable goal eating a wide diversity of fiber.
Diverse fiber.
The gold standard that many top researchers and gastroenterologists recommend is aiming to consume 30 different plant foods a week.
So what does this all mean? Because I have to admit, when I first read the 30 different plants a week rule in the notes, it sounded impossible.
A lot of people feel that way.
Are we all supposed to quit our jobs and become full-time foragers just to keep our gut lining happy? I don't even know if I can name 30 vegetables.
I know 30 sounds incredibly daunting at first glance, but the biological reality is that it's much easier than it seems because diversity matters just as much as volume.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you don't need to eat 30 giant bowls of completely different vegetables. The microbes just need different molecular structures to ferment. Herbs and spices count heavily here.
Wait, spices count?
Absolutely. Garlic, turmeric, black pepper, cinnamon, they all count toward your 30. A handful of mixed nuts and seeds. If it has almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, and chia, that is 5 different plants right there.
Oh, wow. That is much easier.
Exactly. Lentils, beans, oats, a banana in your morning smoothie. When you factor in the spices and the seeds, it adds up incredibly fast. The goal is simply to give your microbiome a wide, rotating menu of different complex carbohydrates to chew on over the course of the week.
Okay, so as we pull all these biological mechanisms together for you, the core takeaways for your own health are surprisingly grounded. It's not about expensive juice cleanses, forcing down bone broth, or completely eliminating gluten from your life unless you have a diagnosed medical need like celiac disease.
Right. Keep it simple.
It's about prioritizing a wide diversity of fiber-rich plants, aiming for that 30-plant rule by getting creative with your spices, nuts, and veggies to maximize butyrate production. It's about managing your psychological stress and sleep, knowing that the vagus nerve is constantly translating your mental state into physical changes in your gut. It's engaging in moderate exercise without pushing yourself into extreme physiological stress, using antibiotics responsibly, and recognizing that cellular health is about daily consistency, not a 48-hour quick fix.
Beautifully summarized.
And perhaps most importantly, if you are experiencing chronic, persistent digestive symptoms, don't just self-diagnose leaky gut based on a social media video. Go seek a real medical evaluation to rule out actual conditions.
This raises an important question, though. If we are doing all these things, managing our diet, controlling our sleep, regulating our stress, who is actually in charge of this system?
That is the perfect, slightly terrifying place to leave this. We've spent this whole deep dive exploring how your choices, your mental stress, your diet, your sleep schedule dictate the health of your microbiome and your intestinal barrier.
We have.
But the research lets us flip that entirely. Studies show that some of these gut bacteria actually produce chemical substances that perfectly mimic human neurotransmitters, things like dopamine and serotonin.
It's incredible.
And they can communicate those chemical signals directly up that vagus nerve superhighway and into your brain.
Right into the control center.
Which leaves you with a slightly unsettling question to ponder the next time you have a sudden, inexplicable food craving or, a mysterious mood swing out of nowhere. Are you actually the one deciding how you feel and what you want to eat? Or are the trillions of microscopic organisms inside your gut quietly pulling the strings of your own brain from behind that invisible security checkpoint?
It is a profound biological role reversal to think about.
It really is. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Leave that question turning over in your mind, and we'll catch you on the next one.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing for more content like this.